As a group of young people living in Lewisham, we care for our local environment and are aware of the changes taking place. We spent 2 months on Creekside looking at the impact of development in the area. We visited 4 different organisations to hear their point of view. We spoke to Nick from the Creekside Centre, Andrew Carmichael from the Creative Development Agency, Sally from Lewisham, and Liz from APT Studios.
Creekside Centre opened about 4 years ago. What we do here is environmental education. We bring in schools into the centre so they can find out about the wildlife of the creek, geography of the creek, anything to do with the environment within this local area.
The lower creek, so I was going to go up to Mumford, but we're running a bit.
So they find out about the rivers, about the history of the area, about the wildlife, and they get a chance to catch wild shrimps and leeches. That's blood-sucking leeches, and crabs and all sorts, and we get fish and everything that's living in the creek.
Right, will there be life or will there not? Let's get okay. Here are the little shrimps, and they feed on decaying material in the river, leaves, twigs and the like. But we also have leeches, and there's a leech there.
The reason that Creekside is so important around here is that the prices went down. And what happened is that lots of artists and lots of creative people found that they could come here, they could set up studios and set up businesses and experiment. And out of that came a lot of things which are now quite successful.
Lewisham is Europe's leading dance conservatoire. Lewisham's been based at Creekside for about 5 years. The building actually glows at night and it's designed to be a beacon in the area.
We've got fine art studios here. We've actually got 3 floors of studios with 37 studios for visual artists, so painters and sculptors and people like that. We've got some very well-known fine artists who exhibit, nationally and internationally. So between them, there's probably quite a lot of awards.
The whole nature and tenor of Deptford is changing. It's been quite resistant to change, which I'm glad to say, and so there's still got a bit of an edge to it, Deptford, but it's going more and more upmarket. No, it's changing the whole nature and character of this place. It's inevitable, it's going to happen, but London is constantly reinventing itself. So the developments that have taken place, they could have been done so much better if we just didn't have trains going past us all the time. And I think it's the constant trains going backwards and forwards, and eventually it drives everybody insane, which is why we ended up with the developments we've got. There are lots of different features that could have been inbuilt within developments if they were more willing to do so, but you have to battle with local authorities as much as you do with developers, and it really is just exhausting work.
It's important to attract business to this particular area as opposed to just residential. It is very difficult to strike a balance between developing the creek and protecting the creek itself. You can't develop within about 3 metres of the edge of the creek if you want to build new buildings. And if you've been around here for a few years, you'll actually notice that the creek, which once used to be almost totally devoid of life, is now actually quite good for an inner city sort of waterway.
So behind me you've got sort of the vertical habitat, the vegetation growing on the wall. We've got one beach in Deptford Creek, and that's our entrance to the creek. And you can see all the major plant growth in around the same median high watermark. But there's much more of it because it's got a much greater area to grow on. And we'll go up and have a look at some of that. So here we have got the sort of full intertidal range of species going from sort of the lower marsh area, where we're getting clustered dock and water starwort, up through the middle zone here where it's dominated by this plant, which may look a bit like parsley, but it's actually one of the most poisonous plants in the country. One of the places wildlife habitats can go is on top of roofs. They're out of the way of everybody then. I mean, it's a shame we have to have wildlife out of the way of everybody. I'd rather have it on the ground. It's finding ways of
building things and ways of living that allow other species to live as well, and that's really what we've got to be doing far more of. It is one of the major features we worked on because, you know, we became aware really there's nowhere on the ground these things can go. People won't allow it near development. So we started on the roofs, and the nearest one we've got here is on top of the Creekside Education here. We've got a brown field roof on top there. We're still losing wildlife sites with absolutely no mitigation taking place at all in Deptford and Greenwich.
When the building was designed and created, they actually made the roof as a eco-friendly green roof, which is actually home for an endangered species of birds.
Everything comes down the creek, so everything gets thrown into the river, upriver, and everything comes down the creek. So we get all sorts from I don't know, strange photographs of strange activities, to shopping trolleys, to plates, to we found a revolver in the creek the other day, so we had to call the police round to get that sorted out.
I'm sure there's many people who've walked up and down the road Creekside and never even realised that there is a creek there, that there is natural water, that there's fish and ducks and weed and all that sort of stuff. It's important around here to sort of see all the different sites which have been separate before. Under this new development will all come together as one. So the site on this side, which backs onto the creek, that will become bars and restaurants and residential. There will then be a large public square, which is just behind where you are now, and then the building on this side over here, that will be knocked down as well, and that will become more residential, but also some office units as well. And there's also a plan to put an art gallery on the corner. So all these sites, which have all been separate before, will be brought together under this new scheme.
Creekside has been designated a creative hub by Creative London, and actually at APT I worked on that strategy to see what creative businesses were going on in the area, and it is really creative. The artists have been here for a long time, so it's a very positive place to be. Everybody's very friendly, so it is creative, and certainly since Laban came and you know, they got their building here in the Creekside Centre, that's really improved. Obviously buildings need to be, you know, kept up, they've got to be improved and developed, and that's all part of the life we live, but we want to retain the integrity of Deptford. It's a very gritty, special place, and I don't think any of us want to see that change too much.
What I love about the creek is it constantly changes. It's a hugely dynamic system, so you've got the tide, you know, the sea breathes in, breathes out twice a day, and that's always bringing new things in, taking old things away. So it's always constantly changing, and the wildlife is changing. We're getting some very different species turning up. So what I love about the creek is, yeah, it's forever surprising me, which is great.
It's nice to be located next to the creek. Often on my journey to work, I walk over the little bridge that comes across the river, and it's actually quite a nice sort of peaceful journey into work.
Being near the creek is just so lovely for the artists, so it really added benefit to the actual building. You'll notice a lot of the studios have all got very good windows that open out onto the creek, and a lot of them cite the creek as inspiration. It would be nice if Creekside did continue to develop, but slowly and steadily. It's a very nice mix of residential and industrial, so this side of the road's very good for that. So we do want it to move on, but not to change drastically.